just a few minutes ago. I'm an Air Force ROTC cadet, so I love the military, and I'm a business student. So I thought this was a super cool opportunity to hear about kind of the transition between, military and civilian, how you get into that, and how you build your careers. Thank you, guys. All right, so if I'm not mistaken, Jennifer, are we going to be rolling into the speakers now? Awesome. So our first speaker for today is Jesse. Jesse, take it away.
So excited to be here. Thank you so much. And this is an incredible invite by my brother, Zach, and I'm excited to connect to the faces I haven't connected with yet. So thank you so much for having me. But, I just want to, say hello, and can't emphasize enough how exciting today is going to be for everybody. So, just for some overview, what I do today is not where I started, and we'll kind of, jump into that. And I think, are we doing just a 1 to 2 minute intro right now? Or are we doing the 10-minute? Okay, 1 to 2. Okay. So Jesse Tedesco, Navy vet, from Boston, live in Georgia, have a podcast called The Jesse T Show, which highlights entrepreneurs, athletes, authors, amazing human beings doing amazing things, and shares that journey with the world. We are syndicated in 12 cities. You can hear us around the world. Been doing it for 3 years. And that's the fun thing. The other thing I do is 46 and 2 Wealth Partners, which is a fee-only financial planning firm. And I operate as a fiduciary. And all that means is I just don't screw my clients. And I've taken an oath to not do that. I don't sell products or services. I don't take commissions. I help people where it really matters. And the last thing I do is a retreat business where we take high-functioning hippies all around the world, and we teach them how to heal through trauma, PTSD, anxiety, depression, drug addictions. And we use things from ecstatic dance to meditation to sweat lodges all the way to plant medicines. So I'm Jesse T, the most unconventional by-the-book person you'll ever meet.
Thank you, Jesse. It sounds like you have a really diverse background, so we have a lot to learn. Next up, please introduce yourself, Don.
Well, my name is Don Long. I came from a small town in North Carolina, and anybody that's ever been in a really small town understands why it's important to find a way out. And my way out was going into the Air Force right out of high school, and getting a chance to hopefully get out, like they used to say in recruiting. They said, join the military and see the world. So I joined the military and wound up first stationed at Shaw Air Force Base, 126 miles from home, seeing all the territory that I saw growing up. So basically went in the Air Force, spent 10 years, got out, and like many military veterans, and I'll get into this more later, I kind of disconnected from that community and realized after about 30 years something was missing. So about 6 years ago, I got heavily involved in a number of veteran organizations here in the Atlanta area, and discovering how much other veterans were disconnected from the community. So that's why I had decided to start getting involved with the veteran coaching things that I do through my consulting practice, Long Insights, and we'll get into that more in a bit. But I want to thank Zach Knight, fellow veteran, for this opportunity, and also Jennifer for being here to be part of the panel tonight.
Thank you so much, Don. Next up, please introduce yourself, Stacy.
Hi, my name's Stacy O'Byrne, and I live in Southern California, currently in Las Vegas, and apparently getting hit by the sun. I'm in a hotel room and kind of hard to control the lighting. What do? I did what I was supposed to do. I went to school, got a great education, got my BS and BM, and it meant nothing to me. It was a bunch of BS and BM when I tried to climb the corporate ladder and realized that I was book smart about business, not street smart about business. And I started out making minimum wage, and within minimum wage at that time was $6 an hour. I climbed the corporate ladder, and within a year I was making 6 figures. Several years later, I was responsible for 500 salespeople. I was really good at sales, leadership, and communication, and corporate America did what corporate America does. They promote talent and request them to make a bunch of mini-me's. I used a lot of my skills that I got from my leadership development courses in the Army. I was enlisted in the Army. I honorably discharged as a corporal. I saw combat. I did things nobody ever wants to do. I've seen things nobody ever wants to see. When I got out of the Army, we were part of Operation Desert Shield. I was in the air on 9/11. I was supposed to be on Flight 11. That night, I got rerouted Monday night to fly into a different state to terminate a manager. So it was somebody else's fate that saved my fate. Because of 9/11, I found myself losing a job that paid me about $300,000 to $500,000 a year. And I don't know if you've ever made that kind of money. It's kind of really hard to lose it. I didn't know what to do. The country was pretty shut down. Employers weren't hiring. So I became a very reluctant entrepreneur. And I jumped off the cliff and I learned how to fly on my way down. I bought a company I knew nothing about, a printing business. I built it, took it from bankruptcy to 7 figures in 18 months and was living the dream. I crushed my hand with a 300-pound box. I needed 7 surgeries to rebuild it. While I was rebuilding it, my business partner embezzled everything from me. He didn't just embezzle everything from me, he sued me the very next day and left me with 16 cents in the bank. So through the course of recovering from PTSD and navigating my way, I started utilizing a lot of tools. I started developing a lot of successful businesses. Entrepreneurs kept coming up to me, asking me how I did what it is I did. And I realized that what I knew from neurolinguistics programming really shifted my business, really shifted my state, really shifted who I was. So I created Pivot Point Advantage and made it a sales leadership training company. I certify people in neurolinguistics programming. I teach people how to get out of their way so that they can finally have their way. I make millionaires is basically what we do now. And I've been living my dream. I built a 7-figure business. I own 7 businesses now, and I love watching people thrive.
Thank you so much. I look forward to being a millionaire after this. Next up, Chris.
Hello, everybody. Chris Levy. So I don't know if we're just doing basic introductions, but yeah, so a little bit about me. I'm currently active duty military. I've been in for about 12 years now. Also, I've been doing entrepreneurship on the side for about 4 years. I was super excited, got to talk here about 6 months ago at the conference in the spring. And so I'm just really excited to connect with everybody and, you know, just tell a little bit of my story and hopefully share a couple of things I've learned along the way.
Thank you so much. We can't wait to learn from you. Finally, Zach, please introduce yourself.
What's going on, everybody? I'm the jokester of the group, so I'm going to be sending messages to people, making y'all laugh a little bit more. Big shout out to Chris. He's the one that arranged this. I know all the veterans on the panel, but Chris is the focal point of this one. So shout out to him for hooking this up for the rest of us. And for my background, I'm a little bit backward. I do everything a lot backward, actually. I was a police officer here in Atlanta first and then went into the military. So I did that backward, but I went in the Army, of course, the best branch that there is. I'm a infantryman. So I went over as a platoon leader to Afghanistan, spent a few years there getting medically discharged due to nerve damage in my arm currently. But outside of the military, I own 6 businesses, have a podcast that is way too much fun where I chop it up just like this and BS too much with a bourbon in my hand. Usually y'all probably aren't old enough to drink yet, so I don't encourage that, but have a lot of fun on the podcast. And I've really moved into the business coaching space here in Atlanta. I'm really focused on my community where it's be a tactical leader and it teaches that tactical leadership. So super excited and looking forward to chatting with everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for introducing yourselves. So we're going to be going in the same order. Each speaker, you'll have about 10 minutes to kind of talk about your career, whatever specifically you want to talk about, but we just want to learn about what you're all about. So to lead us off, please, Jesse, you've got 10 minutes.
Thank you so much again for the time and the space. And, you know, I was just in Austin, Texas a couple of weeks ago and doing some different things down there. And I was on a podcast that was, you know, talking about different things in life. And I think this is timely for this, where, you know, we live in a day and age where we expect everything. We expect, you know, food to come out a certain way. We expect it to come out a certain, you know, time frame. We expect, relationships to pan out a certain way. We expect our businesses to do certain things, but what you're going to learn in life is throw your expectations out the window. And what I've done for me is I have zero expectations. You know, I have an idea of how I'd like things to happen. I have processes and planning that I put in place so things kind of do their thing. But removing expectations, like there's a cliche that's been around. It talks about, you know, missed expectation or frustration is due to a missed expectation kind of thing. And what I've learned in the last couple of years, specifically along my journey, is if I go into a situation, whether it's travel, whether it's business, whether it's just a brand new relationship, and I don't hang expectations on that thing, I'm always pleasantly surprised, even if it's a hard thing. Like I'm into a lot of like hard stuff. Like I take ice baths, I sit with shamans, I like go in sweat lodges. Like I do a lot of weird things, and I do it for the greater growth of like myself and my relationships and my businesses. But I don't go in there with expectations anymore, because if you go into a situation where you're expecting an outcome, you're expecting something to happen, and if it doesn't happen that way, you kind of miss the present moment. And Zach knows this story pretty well, because, you know, we're pretty tight, but I've seen a lot of death in my life, and I've held death in my hands a bunch of times. And what you have to realize is, as cliche as it is, it's an absolute gift. This moment, this present moment is a gift. And so being in the moment, being in the big now, and being present is another cliche. It's absolutely true. The gift, the present is a gift. And we never live in the future. We're always expecting things in the future. We're always expecting things to happen. And for me, what I've learned in my journey is expectations, you know, they're good to have a North Star. You have to have a purpose. You have to have a guiding light. But just enjoy the moment, enjoy the big now. Along the way, the biggest thing I would say is focus on relationships, focus on mentors, people that can add value in your life. 5 people that are around you day to day is going to pretty much dictate where you go in the future. And so hang around with people that challenge you, hang around with people that motivate you, that you can motivate, that there's a 360 kind of coaching situation going on. And if you can add value to someone, great. And if you can learn, great. So I think that just kind of moving forward, my own journey is enjoying the now, enjoying the moment, enjoying the journey, so to speak. And in terms of business, fail as much as possible. I started my business journey as a kid shoveling snow in Boston, selling comic books, trading baseball cards way before Gary Vee was a thing. And I screwed up so many times in business, but every time I screwed up, I learned something. I gained new insights. I gained new knowledge. I gained new relationships. I gained new frameworks and new paradigms to operate in. And so this is more of a business-centric kind of conversation. I would say, don't be afraid to start that business. Don't be afraid to make that phone call. How can you add value to someone in your world, whatever it is that you're doing? And so when you look at life, it kind of parallels. And I would say, don't ever try to look at business and life separately. Bring them both together. For me, business is kind of a lifestyle in a sense. It's like, how do I want to live my life? Do I want more freedom? Do I want more travel? Do I want more opportunity to impact people and serve people? And if you can do that, it's a life well lived. If you have a way to be of service to people, if you have a way to show up for people, if you have a way to add value to people and enjoy your life along the way, that's a life well lived. And another piece to this is not having regret when you're older. So try the things that you are challenged by now. Break your comfort zones. I think it was Will Smith who said, your best life is on the other side of fear. And it's really true. I mean, there's a lot of people that are on this panel right now that have seen some pretty amazing things. I'm just assuming based on your backgrounds. And it's those things that challenged us and scared us that really lit a fire under our asses and helped us grow and helped us learn about ourselves. And I think it was the great Mike Tyson said that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. It's absolutely true. For anyone here who's been punched in the face repeatedly, actually, you don't know who you are until you've been punched in the face. And so what I'm kind of emphasizing here is, don't be afraid to do things that are uncomfortable. Don't be afraid to get a little weird from time to time and try things that your soul's calling you to do, whatever those things might be. It could be travel. It could be start the business. It could be ask out that guy or girl, whatever it is. But you have to really fine tune and listen to your intuition and like get internal and create space for what it is that you want. And then you can put a framework around how you operate in the world and then enjoy life. So I would say the biggest thing is shit's going to happen. You are going to face adversity. You are going to have amazing experiences in this life. Just enjoy the moments. Try not to have expectations. Try not to die with regret. It's the biggest thing I'm working on right now, is not having regret when I die. Having the tough conversations, having those moments where, you know, I have to show up in a situation where I may not want to. I think for me is the biggest thing right now, and learning about living life well lived. So that's my piece.
Jesse, thank you so much for that. Something I wrote down was fail as much as possible. And I hear a lot, you know, you have to get used to being uncomfortable, get comfortable being uncomfortable. I feel like that's something that you iterated a lot. And I think that's something that we can all take away and just really implement. I mean, we hear it, but to really live it is something else. So thank you so much for sharing that. Make sure anyone, if you have any questions, that you're writing them down in the chat, and we will ask them later or write them down on a piece of paper. So our second speaker, Don, please take it away.
All right, thank you for that. And Jesse, you know, you brought up some really great points. I want to go back to when I first got out of service. Again, I kid a lot of my veterans I talked to today. I said we all served in the military in different centuries, quite frankly, because it's been 36 years since I got out. And when I first got out of the military, I was one of these guys that thought, okay, military's in the rearview mirror. I didn't know anything, or hadn't even thought about the veteran community. You know, all I was concerned about was my VA loan, my VA education, and, you know, those limited things. So I didn't even think about my fellow veterans and what they were doing after they got out of service. So when I first got out of the military, the transition into the civilian work world really wasn't that difficult, because basically I went from working in the Air Force to going to work for Eastern Airlines and going into aviation. And anyone that's ever been in aviation knows that it's also very much a disciplined field, right? Simply for the nature of the business. So having spent about 19 years after the military in commercial aviation, was really not, there really wasn't a lot of difference, right? It wasn't until I started going into other commercial enterprises, working in manufacturing, working in healthcare, working for other types of industries, that I started struggling in my career. And I found that a lot of times I couldn't get ahead because there seemed to be an unbreakable barrier or an unseen barrier that I could not get through. And so after about 10 or 12 years of working a number of different fields, different companies, post-military, post-aviation, is when I got reconnected with the veteran community, and I started talking to a lot of our, you know, vets that had, you know, unfortunately been injured in Afghanistan, Iraq, individuals that, you know, were telling me about their struggles coming into the civilian workplace. And so we started having conversations about what kind of challenges they were having in adjusting to the civilian work world. And so at that point, I was able to look back on what was roughly about a 32 year career. And I started looking at the dynamics of what the veterans were going through when they got out, and the things that I had already experienced in the civilian job market. So one of the first things I noticed was that many veterans were telling me that the military programs that were preparing them to go into the civilian workspace, it left them disenchanted, because many of them were feeling like they weren't properly prepared. And so I started thinking about, well, I wonder why that is. We've got 40,000 veteran service organizations across this country, and why are so many vets continuing to struggle trying to make it in the civilian work world? And so I started looking at it from a different perspective, and started thinking about my own history post-military. And what I come to realize is this, is we've got to realize there's an old saying that people don't know what they don't know. What I discovered is that, based upon some of the interviews that I would have with many of our veterans, you basically have somebody within the military trying to tell another military person what civilian work is like. Well, you have to think about that. How can somebody in the military tell you something they've not experienced, right? So that was the first part of the problem. The second part of the problem is that military people weren't prepared for what civilian culture was like, because many of us that went into military service and spent anywhere from 6 to 30 years in service, we really didn't have a lot of pre-civilian work experience as far as civilian work culture. So we come out of this military dynamic with having this sense of mission, right? We have the teaming, we have the mission and everything we're accomplished for. So we have this bit of an assertive nature. And unfortunately, that assertive nature in many civilian work environments is seen as aggression. And so when the civilian workspaces see that as aggression, it kind of limits where that person can go. And so I started again thinking about how can I help both sides of the people on both sides of the equation that didn't know what they didn't know. So I realized that in coaching coaching the veteran community is trying to help them understand the dynamics of the civilian culture and how we, as in our assertive nature, have to learn that we can't be like TIs or team chiefs or drill instructors. We have to find a way to engage that civilian workforce using EQ, emotional intelligence, and ways of communicating in ways that they can understand. Likewise, we need to teach the civilian sector, companies who say that they want to hire veterans but really don't understand what that means. We have to teach them how to be prepared to get the skill sets and the abilities that our veterans bring to our civilian workforce. We have to be able to teach them how to get that out of there. For instance, in coaching many businesses, whenever a business says, well, we're looking for people that blend into our organization, I challenge that and say that any company that wants a blended organization is a death sentence for that business. Businesses should always seek to evolve and change, right? And adapt, these skill sets that military veterans bring in the workspace to help change that culture. Because if you have a culture that's toxic, what you're saying for a blended culture, you want that new person coming in, regardless of what they bring to the table, you want them to blend into that toxic environment. If you have an environment that is complacent, you want people to blend into that culture that's complacent. And again, companies need to understand that they need to change that and learn to add to their business model the skill sets and things they don't have, which is what a lot of our military veterans bring to the table. I also want to piggyback on something Jesse talked about earlier when he talked about using our experience. I tell folks there's no such thing as a self-made person. If you think about it, no matter who it has ever been that's been successful, and you can look at the likes of Jeff Bezos and more specifically Elon Musk and all the things that he's done, he has surrounded himself with dedicated, experienced, knowledgeable, eager, energetic, hardworking individuals that have helped him in all of his endeavors. And so I'm a big believer that, just like Jesse was talking about how we connect with other people and use that experience, I think it's important that we use our experiences to help others, right? I mean, that's what it's about. And to realize that we also have to seek out others to help us. I can't tell you that, people like Zach Knight that I've met in the veteran community, I mean, it's a two-way street with us. We help each other out in our veteran community. So again, I think a lot of it's just continued education for all of us, having the ability to communicate effectively, sharing our knowledge with other people, and realizing that we're here for each other. So.
Thank you so much, John. I think that really brings it full circle as well. This event is hosted by the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. And a lot of what you were talking about was, changing the culture of the workspaces to include those who hadn't been included before. So that's really cool to hear about. It looks like we do have some questions, so those will happen later. Thank you very much. Our next speaker then is Stacy. Stacy, just before you go, I do want to let everyone know that actually Zach put in a question for everyone. So if you want to stick in the chat, any business interests you might have, maybe to guide the speakers a little bit better to address your personal interests, go ahead and do that. Thank you, Stacy. Give it away.
Thank you so much. And first, I would love to thank Zach for recommending me for this, and Jennifer for reaching out, and for all of you for putting it together. I'm going to really pull back and touch a lot of what Jesse said and a lot of what Don said, and then add some of my own. When I went into the military, I went in when I was 17 and a half. So my work experience was Taco Bell and McDonald's. And I grew up in Pacific Beach in San Diego. So for me, it was surfer school, and discipline was something that was really lacking for me. And growing up, I was raised by two mothers, and I grew up to be a lesbian and joined the military in the time when it was not acceptable to have same-sex relationships. And it was even before the don't ask, don't tell. So it was kind of one of those things where I had to really hold back who I was and be somebody that I wasn't. And being told what to do, being a rebellious teenager, was something that was really hard for me. However, it really molded me into the clarity of communication, the clarity of direction, the clarity of relying on myself and being able to trust myself so that I can trust others around me. And, although the military took me in directions that didn't have transferable skills as a civilian. I mean, I was a single channel radio operator. I was airborne. So when I got out of the military, you really don't get paid to jump out of planes. You don't get paid to shoot somebody. And then you don't get paid to really have single channel communication. So I really had to find my professional self through that journey. And I went back to school, and I majored in business management, and I got a job in a warehouse driving a forklift. And then a year later, I became a junior buyer. And then a year after that, I became a senior buyer. And a year after that, it was a purchasing manager, materials manager. And everybody kept coming up to me saying, how do you keep getting promoted so fast? Because I was getting promoted at a level that, people were in the company for 10, 20 years and never even considered. And it really made me reflect. The military taught me to do as I was told, do as I say, and say as I do. And that, for me, in my corporate career, really differentiated me from everyone around me, coworkers and competition. So I did what I said what I did. And I also always followed directions. So moving forward, I started realizing that there was a lot of similarities for me in the Army, both in peacetime and battle time. I was deployed during Operation Desert Shield. I was stationed in Fort Ord. We were light infantry, so we were dropped into hostile environments frequently. We were dropped into Honduras. We were dropped into Operation Desert Shield. So for me, there were several things I learned. There was always a saying in the Army, put it on rock and roll and spray and pray. Well, I learned that doesn't work in business. You can't spray and pray in business. You can't show up and throw up in business, because reality is, if you aim at nothing, you're going to hit it every time. So it's really important for you to have clarity on what it is you want to do, what it is you want to achieve, what type of successes you want to accomplish. And so many people define success differently. However, the majority of the people define it ambiguously. In our unconscious mind, our brain is incapable of achieving ambiguity. It can't do it. Our brain can only achieve specificity. So anything you want to achieve in life, make sure that you have clear, specific understanding of the outcome, and also clear, specific understanding of when and how you're going to achieve it. Because if we just showed up and had no agenda, you're going to end up accomplishing no agenda, right? So it's really important to have clarity. Your definition of success can be very different than my definition of success. I can promise you to remove the word tomorrow or later out of your vocabulary. Because the one thing that I learned a long time ago is tomorrow is the land where all entrepreneurial dreams go to die. So make sure that you're clear on what it is and how it is and where it is and when it is of things you want to achieve. And, you know, both Don and Jesse had said, surround yourself with mentors. You know, I learned early on, people ask me all the time how I made so much money being in my early 20s. I mean, $300,000 to $500,000 for a 20-year-old. I was a baller back in the 90s, right? And for me, it was kind of one of those things where I never really knew how to answer that question until I did. And I'm very clear. I sat, you know, this was when personal and professional development was kind of new, right? So Jim Rohn was one of the godfathers of personal and professional development. And I had a coach, I hired a coach in my early 20s. I had a coach who told me, I want you to buy a VIP ticket at an event that means something to you. So I did. It was Jim Rohn, Bob Proctor, and Brian Tracy. It was like the trifecta of the godfathers of personal and professional development. The VIP ticket was $1,500. And for me, that was a lot of money then, right? So I bought this ticket. I'm sitting in the front row. Jim Rohn comes out and he goes, now I want you to write this down. Write down how much you're going to make this year. So I did. And he goes, figure out what 30% of it is. So I did. And he goes, that number right there is what you should be investing in yourself every year. Invest it in books, invest it in coaches, invest it in development, because what you feed grows and what you starve dies. And I have lived by that rule my entire career. I continually read, I continually ingest development. I also know that when I'm part of the problem, I can't be part of the solution. I also know, as Don said, you don't know what you don't know. And when you don't know what you don't know, when you see something through your eyes, you're only capable of taking in your perception, which is why it's so important to surround yourself with mentoring, with coaching, in trainings and development, so that people who have done what it is you want to achieve can move you through your perspective and have you see multiple perspectives. Now, I say all of that to say it's really important to understand that success is 90% mindset, 10% skill set. That itty bitty shitty committee, the one in your head, that voice in your head, the one that says, I don't have a voice in my head, that's the one you get to learn to listen to. Because that imprint, that program that runs in your brain truly knows the path to success. However, when you choose not to listen to it, it's going to throw a fit. See, we have been programmed with all the resources we need to succeed. We just choose to not listen to it. And it doesn't matter if you're in peacetime, if you're in the battlefield, if you're an employee, if you're an employer, if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're a parent or a spouse. If you don't take action in something, anything, something specific, then nothing's going to happen. It's also important to know how you do some things is how you do everything, and how you do the little things is how you do the big things. And this is why mindset is so important, because what people don't realize is if you procrastinate on this, you're definitely going to procrastinate on that. And when I say how you do the big things or how you do the little things is how you do the big things, it's because if you choose to not take action on something, if you avoid something, what else are you avoiding? Another question to ask yourself, and it's my favorite question I ask all my clients on a continual basis, it's WTF. And it's not what you thought it was. It's where's the focus? Where is your focus? Because our energy goes where our focus flows. So if you're focusing on what it is you don't want to happen, that's exactly what it is you're going to create. So it's so many people can tell you what it is they don't want. Very few people can tell you what it is specifically they do want. And it's because we have been programmed as Jesse had said earlier, with instant gratification, or we see on social media, the zero to hero, the outhouse to penthouse stories, and people know they want that, and they don't know exactly what that is. And they don't know exactly how to get to that. They just know that's what it is they want. Now, I saw a statement in the comments about the law of attraction. I have a few friends who were in The Secret, and every one of them will tell you the secret to The Secret was left on the production floor. See, Rhonda Byrne, I used to work with Rhonda Byrne's coach. Rhonda Byrne had cut The Secret out of The Secret. So the secret about the law of attraction is taking action. I mean, action is built into that word. And so many people stand there and they look to be positive. They have positive thoughts. They have their positive focus, and yet they don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it, or fear crops in, the itty bitty shitty committee paralyzes them, and no action is ever taken, and then they don't understand why they don't have what it is they want. Another thing to definitely remember is how you internalize yourself. In NLP, we call it the internal representation. How you internalize yourself, how you see yourself, how you feel about yourself, how you look at others, how you talk to yourself. This is how others are going to see you. See, people are incapable of seeing us any other way than we see ourselves. The other thing to remember, and this is a paradox, we are incapable of seeing anything in anybody that doesn't exist within us, both good and bad. And have you ever met somebody where you said, I don't know, it's just something about that person. I don't know what it is about that person. It's just something about them. It's because that doesn't exist within your neurology. So because it doesn't exist within your neurology, you can't define it. I tell you all of this to tell you, through your journey of being in business, through your journey of starting a business, through your journey of pursuing success, you are going to meet a lot of people. And to Don's point, you can't achieve success alone. You can't. And to Jesse's point, you are the common denominator in everything of your life. So take a look at the 5 people you spend the most time with, and they are an average sum of your potential. So for some people, if you want to up-level your life, sometimes we have to up-level who we surround ourselves with. That doesn't mean we get rid of our friends. It just means we have the opportunity to up-level and make new ones. So ask yourself, how do I see myself? Ask yourself, what is it that you see in others? What is it that you like that you see in others? And what is it that you don't like that you see in others? Because they're presenting to you a mirror, and that's a mirror for growth and transformation. The last thing I want to leave you with, that itty bitty shitty committee creates an immense amount of limitations for you. Whenever you say, I can't, or whenever you use the word because, you have limited yourself and disempowered yourself. The only way to get out of your way so you can have your way is to make a choice. And that's a choice to change. And change happens the second you choose to allow it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for that. Something that we do in ROTC right now, recently got a new instructor, and she likes to make us write down motivational quotes all the time. And we paste them around our room so that every day when we walk in, we're surrounded by motivation to get better, be stronger, do better. And I wrote down a ton of the things that you said, and I think I'm going to have to paste these on the wall, because things like, how you do the little things is how you do the big things. Success is 90% mindset. These are all things that if we carry them with us and if we embody them, these can, lead us to great success, just like you are experiencing. So thank you very much for that. I'm excited for the Q&A. So our next speaker then is Chris. Chris, let's hear it.
Hey everybody, thanks so much again for having me on. And Jennifer, always so great to connect with you and stay connected. And that will definitely be a trend in my presentation, which I'm gonna pull up here real quick. But yeah, I hope everyone's been enjoying the presentation so far. It's just been great to share the stage with a couple other fellow veterans and get to see everyone else's kind of take on what we're talking about today. So can everyone see my slides? Awesome. Let me see if I can present. Let's see. So I did slides last time, and hopefully my slides are a little bit different than other people that do slides, and not trying to PowerPoint you to death, but it just helps me. I'm a visual person, and so I try to be a visual storyteller, and so it helps me just really kind of frame what I have to share and kind of my story, and it's how I kind of think about things and how I think about the world. But a little bit of background on me. So like I said, I'm still active duty military. I commissioned about 12 years ago, back in 2010, after graduating from St. Mary's, where I met Jennifer, and we have that alumni connection. Commissioned as a field artillery officer, deployed to Afghanistan, a few other places. And then after 4 years, got to switch over to civil affairs, which is an awesome job. And I love my job, my day job. I got to spend some time in Europe, Latin America, a couple other places. This was about 5 years ago. But after kind of going through this litany of military training and opportunities, like I realized that something was missing from my life. And one of the things that I've kind of learned along the way is you're not going to get fulfillment from any one area of life or any person, anything. And if you really want to be truly fulfilled, you got to kind of have these different things and different people in your life that give you different things and give you different give you different ways to look at yourself and look at the world. And so for me, obviously the Army is still a huge part of that, and it's still a part of who I am and what I do. But like I said, it's not everything. And so about 4 years ago, I decided to take my first kind of stab into entrepreneurship. At the time I was kind of going through this existential crisis that a lot of people go through around the 8-year mark of, do I stay in? Do I get out? Like, what do I do? And so I realized that, starting a business was kind of like the next frontier, the next challenge for me. And it's something that, I saw my dad do, I saw other people do, and it was something that excited me. I started listening to podcasts, started reading a lot of books, and I just got that entrepreneurial itch. And so for me, coming from Texas, all my family's from New Orleans. I was, born in the South, raised in, a strong tradition of Southern hospitality. So I love having parties. I love having people over. I love entertaining. I love trying new recipes and really just creating an experience for my guests. And so that's where I came up with the idea for my first business, which was Blue Frog Party Club. And the idea was it was going to be a party in a box subscription service. So every month you would get a party in a box, everything you need to throw an awesome party. But this was before I really even had the slightest inkling of what it meant to do business, of how business operates, of how to do all these different business skills. Like I knew nothing about sales, marketing, fulfillment, e-commerce. All these concepts were really foreign to me. And so I just kind of embarked out on this path of like, hey, all right, we're going to do business. Let's do business. So got a box together in about 2 weeks, listed for sale on Shopify, set up my Shopify store, and got like 1 or 2 sales, and then nothing for like a year. And I had no idea. I tried all kinds of different things, went back to the drawing board, and I was like, all right, something needs to change. And so, and that's my Instagram. That's the Instagram handle. It's still up. The Blue Frog Party Club. I like to say it serves as a reminder of one of my past failures. And a lot of people have talked about failure today on the stage, and I won't beat a dead horse, but failure is something that is intrinsically ingrained in every entrepreneur and is always going to be something that you're going to face. And you should absolutely embrace failure and not be afraid of it. So the next 2 years, I kind of set off on this, all right, what's the next step? Like, what am I missing? What did I not figure out about business? And so I started traveling, got to go to Europe and a couple other places, took a trip for 2 weeks back in 2019 to kind of figure out like, all right, do I go to grad school? Do I get out of the Army? And through that process, I really kind of started to learn, really started to try to hone my craft. I started creating content consistently, connecting with people, having conversations, and really started to like kind of hone in on a vision of like what I want my future business to look like. Fast forward to 2020, and I started grad school at the Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, California, and was in California, the heart of wine country, which is something that I've always just naturally gravitated towards. Back in 2010, my first duty station was Colorado Springs, Colorado, Fort Carson. And my dad, he would come into town every month or so, and he would take his employees out because he had business there. And so it was a good opportunity because I got to go with him to dinner and meet his employees, and we'd have a nice dinner. And whenever the waiter would come out with the wine list, they would always ask him like, "Hey, do you need help finding a wine or whatever?" He would just take the wine list, look at it, and say, "No, I know what I want. Like, we're gonna have this wine." And just ordered wine with this air of confidence that just kind of stuck with me and resonated with me, and just planted the seed like in the back of my mind early on that, hey, wine is something I need to figure out. Well, fast forward to 2019, 2020. I get to California. I'm in the heart of all of the wine countries. I start going out, start tasting some amazing wines, start meeting with local wineries, and then boom, the COVID, the pandemic happens. And that was really, I'm gonna back up real quick. So when COVID happened, what I saw was really an opportunity. I saw this shift, this global shift, right? And that's really like what's a key thing about being an entrepreneur is like being able to see patterns, and being able to see opportunities when things arise. And so when COVID happened, I saw an opportunity to start building a community around wine, and that's when I started hosting these like weekly tastings where I bring on a local winery. They talk about their wine, they'd showcase their cool stuff, and all my people, and then more, and then it just kind of started to grow from there. And from that, it just created this community of people that would meet during COVID and learn more about wine. But the problem was this wasn't a business. This was just a community, and I didn't know what. I asked myself continually, like, how do I turn this thing into a business? And I just woke up one day with the answer. All right, I need to start a wine club. And that's really where Chris's Wine Club was born. I woke up one day, said, hey, the next step is I need to start a wine club, because when people ask me, Chris, hey, what wines are we drinking this week? I can just tell them, join the wine club, and then we'll ship those wines to your door. That's what I started telling people. And in about 3 weeks, I had found a fulfillment partner. Had sourced my first set of wines, had done a photo shoot, developed my high quality content, that skill set that I had been refining for the past 2 years. And then October 1st of 2020, we launched the club. We started off with 22 members. We grew the club to about 60 members in the course of 3 months. And over that period of time, just learned a lot about the wine industry, having a subscription business, and all kinds of other things, and still learning. And I don't want to take up too much more of everyone's time, but one of the key things that I've kind of learned in this process is you got to build a personal brand, and you have to build a platform. And I'm sure Zach is going to have plenty to say about that. But building a personal brand, it's not just digital; it's in person. It's what people say when you're in the room and when you're not in the room, right? It's how do people what the kinds of questions that they ask you. It's how do they describe you to their friends. And so the next evolution for me of developing my personal brand and really hopefully building my platform for not just my wine club but all of my future business offerings and opportunities was to launch a podcast. And so back in August of this year, we launched Everyday Wine with Chris Levy. Every week I bring on winemakers, sommeliers, tastemakers. I have a couple of celebrities lined up for the next couple of seasons. Just some really cool people that are both in wine and interested in wine, and use wine to craft and experience. It's all about the customer experience. And so if I have any parting advice, it's really just focus on building these awesome relationships with people, and it's those relationships that are going to turn into your personal brand, and they really lay the foundation and the footwork for that. And so Just some last thoughts, make sure you network the right way. Build your personal brand from here on out, whether you're going into the corporate world or you're going into entrepreneurship. Your personal brand is what you take with you from place to place. And so you can create content even if you don't run a business. That's a great way to position yourself in the marketplace. Keep track of your business ideas. You're going to have stuff that's going to hit you. You just kind of want to like be able to come back to stuff and relook and like, hey, this is a viable opportunity right now. Find people that in your industry that you want to go into that are really cool, that are, the tastemakers, the up and coming people, the people that know what's going on, and just tell them, have conversations with them and tell them like where you're at and what you'd like to do. And look for opportunities to either work for free or intern. So that way you can really hone your skill set. Just like, Gary Vee talks about all the time, is put in the work now so you can build that skill set, and that's going to turn into something down the road. And so last piece of advice, don't look at where you're going, look at where you want to go. And by that, I mean, figure out the vision for your life, and then figure out the vision for your business that you need to craft to allow you to do that, allow you to achieve those goals, and live the life you want to live. So that's all I have. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. I definitely heard a lot of words and phrases that we use in our business courses all the time. Definitely for me as a marketing major, I heard you talk about segmentation, and personal brand is something that immediately in business 101, they say, hey, like this is something you need to work on. This is something that follows you the rest of your life. Personal branding has to do with everything from getting a job interview to, starting your own empire. So I appreciate that you brought it up. And finally, we will be hearing from Zach today.
How's it going, everybody? Enough of the old people. I'm definitely the youngest here, so I'm proud I don't have the hair to talk about, but I do have the age. So enough of those AARP members. Joking with y'all a little bit. I want to kind of recap on a few things with the military side of stuff. Chris is active duty. He's still crushing it. He's going through, he didn't really talk about it. He's going through, I don't even remember the nonsense, but he's about to be a major. He's about to be fancy and in some school somewhere getting some education. My educational path, I have an MBA at this point. I do have a bachelor's in criminal justice. So I know y'all are in school. Education is a very important thing. Chris is exemplifying that as he is growing all of this on active duty while going to, what is it, like BLC, ALC? Oh, wait, no, that's enlisted side, sorry. But he's really going hardcore on this. So I want to encourage everybody as we're talking through this stuff, like the other panelists on here, I dropped everybody's social media links in the chat box. Connect with these guys and this gal. Let me not leave Stacy out. These are some incredible people that are willing to open the world within our own community. And there's a big piece of a lot of the questions that I saw hit on where, education being part of it, what direction you go in your journey. And y'all are so young. We mentioned something so far about failing, and failing early is like a huge thing. Y'all, I didn't join the military till I was 28. I'm 33 now. So I'm still young enough to have 30 years in business ahead of me. But y'all are like really young. And if y'all are sitting in this room, that means y'all are already motivated to be thinking farther ahead of where I was a beat cop at 21, thinking about how to arrest people and what bar I could finally get into. Right. So the fact that y'all are in here thinking differently, like props to y'all for already focusing in a world of betterment, because that's not where I was. And I saw a lot of guys on active duty that are unlike Chris, that aren't focusing on what's next. The military for 20 years is great. Education is phenomenal. But at the end of the day, all of that ends. What are you going to do with it afterwards? And a large piece of this in my personal journey, especially post-Afghanistan, was all about self-mastery. We've talked a lot about business here. I know this is very, very business focused, but one thing I've recognized is my own limiting beliefs, my own saboteurs. There's a book called Positive Intelligence. If you haven't read it, I really encourage y'all to go check it out. And it highlights saboteurs of different aspects, where Stacy is NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. She's a huge trainer on the West Coast and really throughout the world. She's just incredible about the mindset aspect of things, where you start looking at things that are sabotaging yourselves. And as younger folks, it's really difficult to look past the Instagram world, to look past the limiting beliefs as you're starting to find yourself and find who you are. One of the biggest things I want to encourage is I speak a lot on leadership. My podcast is all about leadership, and where my journey has really taken me is in order to really lead others, especially as you're entering the military, especially as you're entering the business world and you have interest in that capacity. There are a lot of things that translate from discipline to teamwork to management skills. I mean, there's so many things that translate from the military world into the business world. But at the end of the day, the one thing the military will not teach you is how to decompartmentalize all the things they teach you to compartmentalize. They teach you to pack the skeletons away, continue the mission, put your head down and move forward. One of the biggest struggles I had coming back from Afghanistan, I deployed with Green Berets. We did offensive operations every 4 days. I had a platoon of 35. We lost several guys along the way. The biggest struggle I had coming back wasn't business. I ran 6 businesses while I was in Afghanistan. I finished a lot of my MBA while I was in Afghanistan. It's never, the problem is never doing too much. The problem is never what's that next task or that mission, because that's what we know how to accomplish. What I want you to focus on is, where do you need to be mentally? What do you need to focus on mentally to make sure you're in a better position to handle and cope with life stressors, which is something the military doesn't teach, because it taught me to care about my guys. There's a great book, Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last. That is a huge, huge book. I really love it. I think it's wrong. I think he's wrong in that capacity. If you don't feed yourself, you can't sustain yourself long enough to feed others. It's like when you're on an airplane and the oxygen masks fall down. They always say, put your mask on first and then help somebody else. If you die along the way, you can't help other people. And one of the biggest things I had to learn coming back and then move into business ownership was I had to take care of myself, whether personally, mentally, whatever that looked like, where I really literally broke down my schedule. I have a 15-year-old husky that y'all can't see sitting on the floor over here. I literally broke my schedule down where 3 times a day I have an hour where I take a walk with her. It might be a walk around the block, a walk down the street and back, but I have to break away to set myself aside. The military taught me to wake up at 4 a.m. I still wake up at 4 a.m. I've been out of active duty about 6 months. I wake up at 4 a.m. every day still so that I can go back into the gym every morning to set my day forward with intention, because I know if I'm going to sit there and perform throughout the day, I have to start my day intentionally, and I have to start my day with the things that are going to set me on the path to success. And if I can't show up available, if I can't show up willing to serve others because I'm not serving myself, I'm truly doing a disservice to my clients, my soldiers that I brought back from Afghanistan, all these people that are relying on me, because I wasn't able to focus on myself. And a lot of that turned into, I started hating myself. I had a suicide attempt in March. A lot of people don't want to talk about like the fallout. True vulnerability isn't talking about the missions that happened in Afghanistan where we were ambushed. The true vulnerability that y'all need to recognize as leaders going into the military is like, what's the fallout? Right. My fallout wasn't losing guys. My fallout was the near suicide attempt where I was sitting on the end of a dock ready to go with a pistol in my hand, because guess what? I have nerve damage. I can't use a hand. I'm losing use of an arm, and I'm just done with it all. It's too tough. It's too hard. Nobody cares about me. The whole veteran victim mentality, where I was about to become a statistic. And I never understood that until I experienced it, because I couldn't cope with losing guys. I couldn't cope with the leader's guilt. I couldn't cope with the survivor's guilt, because you're not taught that in the military. So as we're talking about different aspects of building business and going into military and focusing on ROTC, I cannot stress enough to you, the person that pulled me out of that, straight up, the person that pulled me out of that was the man sitting, he's right beneath me on the screen with the beautiful coif, but Jesse T literally challenged me to a 30-day self-love challenge, where he looked me in the eyes, is like, brother, your problem is that you don't love yourself anymore. And you can't look yourself in the mirror and say, I love you to yourself. The one conversation that you should be able to have the most comfortably with yourself, because we all have that negative rhetoric that goes through our head that beats us up continuously. And that's something that as young folks, y'all are going to encounter over and over and over and over again. And it's the one thing that Furthered education won't teach you, military won't teach you, unless you just have a phenomenal leader in the military that wants to talk about these things. The alpha mindset isn't going to talk about these things. If you're in an ROTC program right now and you're about to be an officer in the military, they're not going to tell you how to manage your own stuff. They're going to teach you how to manage your soldiers. They're going to teach you how to make sure your soldiers are okay, take care of your guys, your gals, but they're never going to teach you to unpack everything that you need to unpack because you're so focused on them. So my big message for y'all is, yes, business is great. Building a legacy, which is a huge part of what I focus on. I'm really focused on legacy, not another Simon Sinek, start with why. I'm focused on ending with why. When am I going to leave here? Because we're all about impact. We're all about service. We're all about trying to do more to leave better. But in order to do that, you have to focus on yourselves. You have to set your mindset forward. You have to learn to look in the mirror, tell yourself you love yourself, because when we're looking at the Instagram world and your best friend's leaning on a Bentley that they rented just to look cool, but they're looking awesome, and you start beating yourself up about, well, I don't see the success, or you missed that promotion because your best friend got, and you start beating yourself up. It happens to us all and it never ends, but you have to learn how to cope and deal with that. You have to learn that who you are is who you are, and that's an amazing individual. You are the best gift to yourself so that you can be the best gift to everybody around you. And that is the biggest thing. Focus on your mindset, focus on how to love yourself, teach yourself these aspects of life so you can teach your soldiers these same aspects. Because when I tell you, of the 35, we lost 2 guys, 12 divorces later, 3 overdoses later, 2 arrests later, DUI and possession charge. I could list the litanies of issues I've had among my own platoon because they fell into the trap of not unpacking their issues. So business is amazing, military amazing. I couldn't be doing what I'm doing today without that. But if you really want to truly be a great leader and lead your people, you're going to have to focus on leading and loving yourself to be able to share that message with them. That's where a huge focus needs to be. I know that's really dark and grim. Sorry to finish on that, Jennifer. Let me get a little bit of smile from Jennifer at least. But that's the real talk. That's the part we really have to focus on. And if y'all can learn that now, y'all are already a decade ahead of me, 2 decades ahead of Chris. I don't want to talk about everybody else's age, but if y'all can learn that now, y'all will be so far ahead by the time you're ready to transition to the civilian world, because you'll have the emotional intelligence, you'll have the empathy to transition successfully. You'll already know not how to lead others, but how to love others, because you've already loved yourself to that capacity. That's my big takeaway, y'all. I didn't get the beep in the timer, so I'm assuming my time's up, Rebecca. You should have hit that.
It is, yes. I'm
that
sorry.
forced mute button. Come on, hit the forced mute button, girl.
I thought that was a really important thing to talk about, so I didn't want to cut it off. Especially, I mean, not to make this about myself at all, but I've experienced directly, I mean, what you're talking about. The military does not address these concerns. The generation of cadets that are graduating this semester, we're pushing really hard to incorporate mental health and mental wellness in our training, because we will be tomorrow's leaders. And that's just, we're going to be leading people of all ages, of all backgrounds, and we need to learn how to address the mental health aspect. But unfortunately, there's just no precedent. There's no, this is all us, things that we're creating, and we're all going through it. So, I mean, not to get a little too personal or overshadow anything that you said at all, I really appreciate that vulnerability. And even from a personal standpoint, I've had to stand up on a stage for a briefing and say to everyone, hey guys, I'm in eating disorder recovery and we need to talk about it. And it's scary. So thank you for being willing to talk about that.
I've had an eating disorder myself. The military is one of the biggest on images and physical fitness. That is such a prevalent thing in the military that nobody wants to talk about. So props to you for being able to share about that.
Thank you. So that gets me really excited to talk about the Q&A now, because I'm sure we have tons of questions. I know I've got a whole paper of notes, so everybody get ready. But I'd like to open up the floor to all of our viewers here. I saw questions, so I'm going to scroll all the way up to the very first and call on people. If you'd like me to read your question, just unmute yourself and let me know. So I'm seeing the first questions that we have in the group chat are from Cole Rushing. Do you want me to read those questions out loud for you?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
All right. So when going into the military, did you know you were planning to go into business afterwards, or did you figure it out as you went through school in the military? And if so, what made you want to pick business or studying a business major? And was there any military influence in all of that? So basically, what was the connection? Was there influence? What caused all that? So
I can hop on that first and give my take. The military was always the end goal, right? So, and that drove my decision. That's why I got an international relations degree, because I thought that getting a degree in, what I thought was international politics would give me some sort of idea to have a framework to understand the world. But what I've learned is, the more I've done business, the less value I see in education. I'm not trying to say that a degree is not valuable, but what is valuable is understanding how the world works and understanding how business works. And the only way you're going to get that experience is by being up, in it and doing it every day and hustling and making connections and getting to know people. And so for me, like I said in my story, I didn't know I was going to do business until 6 or 7 years into active duty. And I think a lot of people are going to have a similar, experience with that, or have a similar take on that. And so you can go to school, you can study business, and you can, start to get an idea of what that looks like. But I would say, to hit on what Stacy and Zach both talked about, self-development is probably the biggest critical thing that you can do to prepare yourself either for the military or for after the military and going into business, and being able to start knowing how to teach yourself, how to develop yourself, and learn the skills that you need to be an effective leader.
thank you for that. So the next question that we have is from Sujin. Do you want me to read that out loud for you? All right, I'll go ahead and read that out loud. So they are a PhD candidate working on their dissertation, interested in veteran students who return to higher education. They were wondering if they could get help to get more real practical insight. I think they were looking to connect. So I think they will probably be adding you on LinkedIn. So just to clarify, is everyone willing to have us all reach out if we need to for anything?
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Is it okay for me to reaching out to you? If it's okay, I'm going to ask Rebecca to get your email address, because this is going to be really huge things, mental health issues, career choice, or something like that. So I really, really want to get real information, not just, textbook, those things. So I would appreciate it.
So I'll let you ask. It looks like you put more questions in the chat, but I'll let you ask those individually later on. Okay, scrolling down. Does anyone else have any questions? I'm not seeing any more in the chat. Did I miss anyone? All right, I do have some questions, if you guys don't mind. So my first question is for Stacy. I think you mentioned that you were enlisted. So you mentioned that the military taught you to do as you were told, and only that. So I'm kind of curious, from the business standpoint versus the military standpoint, seeing the juxtaposition going through school as an ROTC cadet as well as a business student. I see a lot of, on the business side, they say break all the rules. And on the military side, we're straight-laced. So how did you navigate that? Would you say it was a shock to the system, or were you always kind of a rule breaker?
So this
No,
was-
Stacy is the shock to the system. She is the shock every time. Let's go ahead and say that. Sorry, Stacy. Go ahead.
That's okay. This requires me to be completely transparent, not something I usually do in a 10-minute. You know, I grew up in a separated family and had a very alcoholic, abusive father. And I turned to drugs. So I became a drug addict. I went through a drug rehab when I was 16. And when I got out, I realized I was lacking discipline, focus. You know, I really didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And my dad had spent all my college fund on his drinking and everything to punish me for leaving him and moving in with my mother. So that was what attracted me to the military. See, nobody in my family except for my grandfather was in the military. He served under MacArthur and in World War II, and he begged me not to go into the army. He begged me not to go into the military. Old school mind about women in military back then. My modeling was all adults getting jobs. So going into the military, I broke the mold of the family, which actually I found myself. You know, the military really taught us what 100% feels like, what 100% is, because if you don't give it, you don't survive. And that was very transferable both into a job and building a business. So getting a job was a stepping stone for me. It allowed me to climb the ladder in business from being told what to do to learning how to tell others what to do in a civilian environment. Because the military's whole philosophy was push till I get tired, and you can't bark orders in the civilian world. So I learned how to be an EQ leader by climbing the corporate ladder, which then allowed me to find my own, because I did things my competition never did. If I couldn't serve it, I would send my client to who could, and it would piss my bosses off. Until I really jumped off the cliff and became that reluctant entrepreneur. I built my plane on the way down. I didn't know how to fly. I learned how to fly, and I trusted myself. So for me, it was very transitional. I'm an industry disruptor. I'm a mold breaker, and being an entrepreneur is very authentic to me. However, it was a transition. You know, whoever tells you success is easy is lying to you. Success is simple. It's not easy.
Thank you. That was great. Unfortunately, it looks like we are about out of time. So thank you everyone for coming. Like I said, I've got a whole sheet of things that I wrote down. I heard a lot of amazing things. As an ROTC and business student, I heard a lot of things that are echoed on both sides, and I learned a lot of new things. So thank you all for taking the time. I've sent you all a LinkedIn request. And we appreciate your time so much. We hope you have a wonderful night. And thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Chris, thanks for putting me in touch with Zach. Zach, thanks for facilitating the whole rest of this. And everyone, the link for this event, there will be a recording of it, will be on ODI's website. So I'm going to drop this in the event that you need it to fulfill your homework. The recording usually goes up a day or two later, so give the webmaster time. Don't send me an email going, I need it for tonight. It'll be up in a day or two. But if you need to go back and rewatch it, it's right there. Thank you so much, everyone. And that concludes tonight's program.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.